What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here, and we got some major news here for you guys in this video. Let's jump right in. You're not going to believe this. I'll also let you hear from Secretary of State Anthony Blinken here in just a moment as well. Check this out. Okay, here on Russian state TV. Remember, a lot of Russian state TV is pretty much controlled by the government. It's similar to what happened in World War II from Germany. It was controlled by the government. Russian state TV says that the U.S. has declared war on Russia after Crimea comments. Yeah, so look at these details and imagine what people in Russia are thinking when they hear this. This is how serious this is getting right now. A Russian propagandist has claimed on state TV in Russia that the U.S. has declared war on the country, Russia, following reports of the White House's approval of targeted strikes on Crimea. These are the drone strikes that Ukraine has sent a few drones over to Crimea, which have largely been shot down. Of course, Ukraine has not really claimed these drone strikes, but they're largely thought to have been from Ukraine because, well, who else would they really be coming from? And this is serious. This is serious. So, in a video uploaded to Twitter, which is in Russian, by the account The Kremlin Yap here on Saturday, Russian journalist Igor Korochenko claimed the U.S. has crossed a red line by supporting the strikes, which the U.S. isn't really supporting the strikes. Korochenko's comments follow on from a previous statement made by the U.S. under Secretary of State Victoria Nuland. According to Reuters, Nuland said Washington supports Ukrainian attacks on military targets on the peninsula and has called for it to be demilitarized. Crimea was illegally annexed by Russia from Ukraine in 2014. Russia basically just took it from Ukraine by force because Crimea couldn't defend it. Okay? In the video translated, the videos from the Kremlin Yap, an account that tracks Kremlin propaganda, Korochenko hit out at the US and says in the video in Russian, after the US crossed every imaginable and unimaginable red line, today the US State Department actually announced that it was going to war with Russia. This is what they're saying in the video in Russian. Of course, the US has not announced that they're going to war with Russia, but this is what they're saying on Russian TV. Quote, I assume that this is how we should interpret Newland's statement. There is no need for halftones. The U.S. is an enemy of Russia, a military adversary. He added, quote, if it expects massive missile strikes on Russian territory, which basically, remember, they just stole from Ukraine, to be carried out with their help, but as if by someone else's hands, Ukraine, then perhaps we can regard this as a casus belli, cause for war, and react accordingly. Koroshenko said he wanted Russian officials to, quote, give adequate conceptual, doctrinal, and military responses to this audacious statement of the United States, and appropriate measures should be taken. What kind of measures? We shall see. Michael Clark, professor in the War Studies Department at King's College in London, describes Koroshenko's comments as bluster. He told Newsweek this is just more bluster and repeats things being said on the channel at regular intervals. In order to justify the fact that Russians are now well aware of the special military operation, is in reality a nasty little war that is getting worse. The sacrifices Russian public will now have to make can only be justified in the Russian homeland itself is now under threat. Hence the steady ramping up of Kremlin rhetoric to justify the sacrifices required. Now, what's interesting here is that Russia considers if Ukraine attacks Crimea a red line, a red line. But what are Ukraine's red lines? Invading their country, stealing their children. Remember, it's been reported now that 16,000 children have been taken from Ukraine, from their families, and been taken to Russia to move to re-education camps. So are we worried about Ukraine's red lines at all? So these are Putin's red lines, but is anybody concerned about anybody else's red lines, Ukraine's red lines? Yeah, so basically, Russia has red lines, but don't worry about Ukraine's red lines. Just go in there and do whatever you want. No worries at all. Just, yeah, so let me know your thoughts here on this. But yeah, and this comes after President Biden just visited the country. He was just in Kyiv here today, and a surprise visit, which is very, very dangerous here. And because remember, this is just 4 days before the 1 year anniversary. Crazy, absolutely dangerous. It's not really the right time to be going there because we really don't know what Putin is planning here. And there was air sirens going off while Biden was there. Crazy. And honestly, this is probably going to be going on for a long, long time. And things are starting to escalate more and more here by the day with Russia, China, and North Korea, which all really seem to be working with each other. And they vote for each other in United Nations votes. Yeah. And all three of them have nuclear weapons, which is kind of the problem, which means you can't attack any three of them because they could use nukes. Just like you can't really attack the United States or any NATO country as well. So it's just kind of a big, all this is a big problem. So how do you get the war to end? It's a good question. How do we get this war to end? And how long could this be going on? As we come into the 1 year anniversary of this, remember a year ago when people were saying, oh, Putin's not going to invade. It's just fear mongering. It's just war mongering. Those 100 to 150,000 troops that he put there on the border of Ukraine, he's not going to invade. Those are people just. Remember, people were saying that that's Biden just war mongering. And then he invaded a few days later. So here we are at the 1 year anniversary. Where do you think we'll be a year from now? Do you think the war will still be going on? Do you think the U.S. will be involved in a war? Do you think we'll be in World War III? Do you think all of NATO will be in a war? Do you think the war will be over? Let me know your thoughts here in the comments. Hopefully the war will be over, but how do we get to that point? How do we get to a point of the war being over and having everything de-escalated with China, Russia, and North Korea? Because that's a conundrum because Ukraine doesn't want to give up any land for the war to be over, but Russia's putting in a new 300 to 500,000 troops, which is a lot of troops, and Russia doesn't want to end the war unless they basically take over land in Ukraine, because at this point they've lost how many billions and billions of dollars, and they don't want to go home a loser. Putin doesn't want to go home a loser. So short of maybe Putin going missing and Russia accepting that they would change directions and accept a defeat, which is not really in Russia's blood, so to say. It's not really like Russia to really just go home and accept a defeat, because if they just take the loss, it's a tough out for them. It's a tough out for them because it would just be such a financial loss and such a moral loss and such a, it's like going home with their tail between their legs. Like how do they save any face out of this if they don't get any any kind of gain out of this at all. So just think about this from their like point of view. How did they get a win out of this? Yeah. So how does the war end? That's a good question. You can let me know your thoughts here in the comments, and we'll see here because the 1 year anniversary is coming up here, and Biden's in Ukraine. Yeah, so let me know your thoughts here. Thanks for liking and sharing these videos. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon after you subscribe. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here's some videos you can watch next. Here's a brand new video about new missiles that North Korea just fired and warned Americans about. And here is some breaking new vaccine data that you need to know about here. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.